Test 1, 2, Lakeside Stadium.
Priest. Standard convoy. Bit more excited. Very excited. Victoria contest between South Melbourne and Melbourne Victory, a potentially season-defining clash here in the Victorian top flight. Coming into this season, maybe you would have circled this game as a pivotal one for Melbourne Victory. This young side, this A-League academy, were always expected to struggle to stay up in their return to the top flight, and indeed that is the scenario facing them down heading into this contest. Few, however, would have picked this game as a relegation six-pointer, would have picked that South Melbourne would also be staring down the barrel of a first ever relegation in their club's history. But that is the fate that the hosts in their all royal blue strips are seeking to avoid this season. My name is Joey Lynch. Thank you ever so much for your company today on the NPL Victoria YouTube page. It is my great pleasure to be joined this afternoon by Lockie Flanagan. He was so good that NPL New South Wales stole him from us, but he's back down this weekend and he's joining me for the call. Lockie, welcome to Lakeside. Huge game today, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is a massive game. Thanks for the warm welcome, Joey. You're absolutely right in that few would have anticipated this would have been a relegation six-pointer at this juncture of the season. I mean, you know, South Melbourne have been hoping and praying for a second division to one day arrive. I don't think BPL was the second division they had in mind. So, you know, wins in games like today really are a must for this club, who, of course, are under new stewardship of late, and they have, you know, had more wins than losses under Sinisa Hardzic in all competitions, but they have flattered to deceive at this point. Tonight, a really good chance for them to potentially kick into gear with some big additions to the lineup.
Well, after a false start, South do get us underway here at Lakeside Stadium, as mentioned, in their all royal blue strips, kicking from right to left of your screen in this opening stanza. That attack will break down for an offside. Melbourne Victory in their away whites, kicking from left to right of your screen in this opening stanza. South Melbourne, they've got Javier Lopez in goal. In front of him, Jordan Lampard, Marko Jankovic. Jake Marshall is one of several returnees to this side, big returnees for Coach Sinisa Hardzic. Lucas Inglese retains his starting space. George Mells is back as well. Robert Harding, Max Mickler, another returnee. Nahel Bernarda gets a third straight start after his return from injury. Jack Painter-Andrews and Sam Franku round out the 11. Melbourne Victory, as you would expect it from this time of year when academy sides, A-League finals, mandated PFA breaks as well. They've got plenty of rotations after Christian Siciliano started last week in the loss to Heidelberg. Well, we'll briefly pause as Melbourne Victory are going to burst forward in the form of Jordan Hoey. He's going to lay it off, and then a speculative-looking shot is sent in. I believe it's Lazarevsky. Indeed it was. Daniel Lazarevsky with a shot, and it's going to deflect out for a corner. So Jonathan Sultan, as I was mentioning, gets the starting goal after Christian Siciliano started against Heidelberg. Jack Michalidis in the squad as well, as this corner is taken short. And then plenty of pace on that one, and it's going to beat everyone and sail out for a goal kick. Daniel Lazarevsky, who had the shot. Jordan Hoey, you set him up for it. Stasi Georgakopoulos starts in the midfield. Parker Williams starts in the back line. Patrick Wall on the wing. Charlie Gorevsky, Tabana Abani, the ever-present Abani. He's played every minute of every game for Victory this season. He retains his place. Aaron Bazensky and John Radamisis round out the side. But, Lockie, you've got to look at those additions to South Melbourne and think that, well, this should be a game they're winning if you're bringing in that firepower back in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there has been critics, I think, of you know, South's start to life under Sinisa Hardzic, but you can make the counter-argument that he hasn't had the full complement of players. And, you know, while the days of long throws may be beyond South Melbourne, depending on which way you choose to look at it, there's no doubt that Max Mickler is still an invaluable player with what he can do with the ball at feet as well. And Sinisa will now have him at his disposal along with the likes of George Mells as well. Interesting to note, though, that despite all of those additions, despite all those changes, Lucas Inglese, who for so long has either played as a central defender or either in that sort of six role that is occupied usually by the injured Ross Archibald, retains his place up top alongside Noel Bernarda. Go figure.
So, well, when you're in search of solutions, in search of avoiding the drop, Yeah, take anything you can get, try anything, throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase is modern problems require modern solutions, but centre-backs up top, not always traditionally seen as a modern solution.
And you maybe would have thought if we were going to centre-back up top, it would be Marko Jankovic.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, it was a curious selection last week in that original Melbourne derby, which of course was another game that South Melbourne really needed to win, and they ultimately did. He did eventually, Inglese, drop into defence as time goes on, so I'll be fascinated to see whether that position that he started in today is the one he ends in at the conclusion of the game, because my bet would be, depending on who scores first and what the layout is, we could see him shift around and quite possibly shift back.
Well, unfortunately for South Melbourne, the man who scored their 2 goals to beat Melbourne Knights last week, Jack Pope, that brace was followed by a red card, and he's not featuring in today's game, which means, well, we'll pause as Victory bursting down the left flank through Abani. Thoroughly modern fullback, and then he loves to get forward, causing some pressure early. Well, it means, but the absence of Pope means that the only player out there for South Melbourne that has scored since March is Robert Harding. It's a remarkable stat when you think about just some of the players that South Melbourne field and have fielded over the years, that the goals have just been so hard to come by.
Yeah, it is one of, unfortunately, not to twist the knife, but it is one of many stats that would have been quite inconceivable going into the start of this campaign. I mean, the other one that really jumped off the page for me was that win, of course, in the NPL against the Knights, was South Melbourne's first win since February against the Knights. Which means their last home win, of course, was that exact fixture, which just beggars belief. Fortress Lakeside has been, or was rather, a big part of this team over the years, but particularly in the Esteban Quintas era. They need to rediscover that if they're going to start pushing themselves further up the table and away from danger.
Yeah, it was a 3-3 draw with Melbourne Victory in round 3, a dramatic 3-3 draw with Melbourne Victory in round 3 that sparked a 12-game winless run for South Melbourne that ultimately cost Esteban Quintas his job. South Melbourne will loop this ball forward, but there's nobody really in the vicinity to give Redemesis too much cause for concern. Lampard picking the ball up with time on the left. To Jankovic, then Marshall, former gold medal winner, back in the squad. Certainly presents a major challenge for Lazarevsky. South forced all the way back to the earth in goal. He's going to look for Lampard, but sail it over his head for a throw-in. So a Victory, as you would expect from an A-League Academy side, disciplined in their pressing, disciplined in their shape, and it induces an error. Lazarevsky fancying in on goal. Had some time to think about what he wanted to do, but then the attempted just slide rule pass picked out. Williams teasing ball forward. Georgakopoulos. Sorry, it was Hoey, just unable to keep it in. Abani now, ball in his hands. Are on that far side by the entrance here at Lakeside. Glazy couldn't control it. Michael Williams for Melbourne Victory coming forward. Think he was trying to find a teammate there, Lockie, but couldn't make proper contact, and it goes out for a South ball.
Energetic start for Victory, as you mentioned. Intensity to their press, which is good to see. I actually don't think, they have obviously really struggled of late. It's been quite a long time since the last win. I think it's maybe 5 consecutive losses, if my memory serves me correctly. attacking that front third of the pitch actually hasn't really been the problem. Obviously, no goals against Heidelberg last week. This is Heidelberg we're talking about, but it wasn't for lack of trying. I thought they were quite good in attack. It's just that defensive end of the pitch that's really been letting them down, and so it is very important that, you know, if this energetic, frenetic start from Victory is to continue, that it is capitalised upon, because it was a similar sort of thing last week when you were there at the home of the Matildas. They were very bright, quick out of the blocks against Heidelberg, created good chances, but just didn't take them, and you just cannot do that against a side like Heidelberg. Maybe you can do it against a side like South right now, but you don't want to continue that trend too long.
Well, it was notable, Heidelberg being Heidelberg, as you said, Lockie. That was the first time in this losing run that Melbourne Victory have had that they lost by more than a single goal. So they haven't been blown out of the water by any of their opponents until Heidelberg. I feel like that's going to be a disclaimer that gets used a lot this season,
yeah,
except when they played Heidelberg.
Heidelberg are going to do that to a few teams. With the obvious exception of St Albans on Friday night.
South. Once again, they're going to build from the back. It's a long ball forward from Painter Andrews. Nicolette trying to bustle his way through, and he had a ping, blocked away. South will retain possession. There's Lampard in space on the left. Instead, it goes shorter to Bernarda. He combines with the aforementioned Lampard, and then a left-footed ball in, swerving away from teammates, punched away by Sultan. Mells lays it off as South retain possession. Dinked ball forward. Bernarda, the intended recipient, headed away from him. Sustained pressure, though, from the hosts. That's an errant pass straight to Mihailides, and maybe now transition in the offering. Hoey running at his man. He's got support. Lays it off. Ball across the face of goal, and there's no one there to meet it. It was Patrick Wall with the pass. And a reprieve potentially for South Melbourne on the counter.
Oh, that just happened so quickly. It came out of nowhere, that 3-on-3 and then a 4-on-4 counter for Victory. Definitely be hoping that more of those opportunities will open themselves up, but I'm surprised at how easily South were opened up on that occasion. Obviously, it was a comfortably blocked shot in the end, but I do like that speculative effort from Max Mickler on the edge of the box. I think in the absence of Jack Pope, and just generally, South Melbourne have had a bit of an absence of dynamism in their attack. I think Pope provided that pretty nicely in the minutes that he did play against Melbourne Knights. And Mickler's always shown an intent to try something and have a pop, even if it's not the best idea. They need more, not less, of that South Melbourne.
As Hills comes forward again, headed clear. Victory wanted the ball, didn't get it, and then the edge of the box, and well, Lampard was arriving and he hit it flush, but Sultan got down low and behind it.
He's a good attacking fullback, Jordan Lampard. I don't think he necessarily gets the credit that he deserves for the attacking elements of his game, as Victory have played their way into trouble here. And Bernarda is going to try and hit one, and it's saved in the end comfortably by Sultan, but Victory caught out playing out from the back. Long ball up towards the Victory attack is comfortably dealt with in the end by South Melbourne. Still looking to kick into gear with their returning charges this evening. Certainly added some much needed quality to a side that desperately needs it in what is looking at this stage like a potential survival fight. Jankovic gets the eyes up. The Victory have hemmed South in well for the moment. They're released on the far side through Harding, and a searching ball is going to find the on-rushing George Mells. A couple of options to aim at, none of them really found, and it's turned away for a South Melbourne corner by Radometsis.
And I think, though, early signs now, South beginning to wrest control of this game, sustained periods of pressure. Knocking on that door, they'll have the opportunity to swing this one in. Ever reliable delivery of Max Mikkola. Not as much height as there has been for Hellas over the years, but still against an academy side, they should have the physical advantage as the ball is swung in, punched away, claimed at the top of the box by South Melbourne. They'll keep coming. Painter Andrews was closed down well by Bozensky, but South can have another corner. George Mells to take this one. South with a couple of bodies on Sultan, the young keeper. Towards the back post, and that will be the opening goal of the game. Marko Jankovic, he scored in this fixture back in round 3, and he's got another one here at Lakeside.
Deja vu for the defender against Melbourne Victory. And it's a funny thing, Joey. I was going to make the point that one of the things that George Mel's inclusion adds to this side is that quality set-piece delivery. He is a real technician in NPL Victoria. And no sooner had the thought arrived in my mind has it unfolded on the pitch, because that was a cracking ball in from Mel's to the back post. The South Melbourne numbers did their work to crowd the keeper. And the header from Jankovic was unerring and easy. It's the 13th goal of the season for South Melbourne. Anything but unlucky, because they could really use that one in the context of this game and what it could mean for the season ahead.
So Jankovic is second of the campaign as he side ahead. Victory looking to respond immediately as the Clarendon corner springs to life. Doesn't matter if it's the youth side, South Melbourne would always relish the chance to beat Melbourne Victory.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a thumping header from Jankovic. Always good when you can not only hear the sound of the ball against the net, it's hit that firmly, but the actual sound of the ball against the noggin. You know you're making good contact when that sound is carrying across the pitch.
South wanted a free kick for handball. They're not going to get it. Lazarevsky was charged down quickly by Marshall. And then in the coming together, it's deemed that the youngster took out Marshall. Free kick to Victory. Sorry, free kick to South Melbourne. So 15 minutes in, South Melbourne with a 1-0 lead, thanks to their skipper, Marko Jankovic, who will use this set piece to get forward once more. Mells. Delivery towards the back of the pack, but it's going to sail over them and out for a goal kick.
Still early days, of course, Joey, in the new era of South Melbourne under a new coach. But you have to admit, it is a little bit funny that some of the things in the games that they have won this season under their new coach, which sort of gave many South Melbourne fans the expectation of a new identity, a new, more possession-focused way of playing. How many of the good things they've done have, I'll just hold thought here as Bernarda breaks through, it's cleared off the line, and eventually Victory knock it away from danger. Just finished the point while we've got potentially a long throw. Maybe Lampard will go short, who knows. But so many of the good things that have happened for them since Sinisa Kahadzic has taken over have still been set pieces, defending behind the ball with 10 last week, and the more things change, the more they stay the same.
The classics.
I mean, this is NPL Victoria. There are some things you can't afford not to do. And
I think any team in world football can afford to be bad at set pieces. The amount of times I had to see Arsenal's set piece coach this season, or hear about him. That throw in into the penalty area will be headed clear, but straight out for a corner off the head of Gorevsky. And here we go, the last time South had an opportunity from this area, they scored. And again, bodies on Sultan. The runs come. Headed clear at the near post. Second phase will be claimed by South, Jankovic. And then the flag is raised for offside.
it's an almost NFL style approach to the corners now, because South Melbourne have got their players attempting to crowd the keeper Jonathan Sultan, but then Victory have now put in their blockers to ward against the South Melbourne players. It'll be a fascinating one to keep a watch on.
18 years old, Sultan making just his second start of the campaign. There's Lazarevsky. Would have been one of the goals of the season, and he managed to sneak that one in, especially given the calibre of the goalkeeper that he's up against. But Lopez watched it all the way out for a goal kick. Bit too cute there from Lampard. His attempted flick on will go out. Victory ball. Good ball from Jankovic to find Max Mikola. Lampard now. Return pass for Mikola is picked out. Sent forward by Radamesas. Deflected by South. All that for grabs in the midfield. Clash between Wall and Mikola sees the latter concede the throw.
Can I ask you a question, Joey? Well,
Yes.
I've just asked you a question, so I've just done it.
You can have two.
Thank you. The abandonment of Mikola's long throws that we've seen so far since the coaching change. What do you think? Because, yes, it was, on the one hand, very distinct and in some cases bugbear of South Melbourne fans under their previous coach. But it cannot be denied that, on the other hand, it was an extremely effective weapon to getting the better of opposition teams that South Melbourne are seemingly now leaving on the table. Or leaving off the table, rather.
I think I would answer it by saying that I enjoy steak for dinner, but I don't want to eat steak for dinner every single night. It's very nice to have, but it's not the only thing I want to eat at the cost of everything else.
Yeah, well, the best fast ballers did have a slow one in the locker. That is true.
Especially, but also getting a bit serious, especially with the absence of Harrison Sawyer this season for South Melbourne. It really wasn't just the long throws for South Melbourne that were so devastating. It was the fact that they were sent in the direction of Harrison Sawyer, who, if he wasn't getting on the end of them and turning them into the net, he was bringing them down. He was
had a
creating
gravitational pull, didn't he?
Yeah. Nah, he's just the best striker in the league for the past several seasons. When he was here, of course, he had stints overseas interspersed with that, but even if you knew what was coming against South Melbourne in those days when you had Mikola hurling it into Sawyer, not a lot of teams were able to stop it, even if they knew exactly what was happening. So probably one of the reasons why we've seen them go away with it in this new era, as we'll call it, as that ball sent to the top of the box. Cut back, nobody there except Max Mikola. You can see what Gorevsky was trying to do. Probably the right idea.
Yeah, I to be honest, I think the problem, not so much the pass selection itself, just the lack of willing runners. I know that I think Mihalidis was in the vicinity, but probably want an extra man for a midfield coming through to have a pop at something like that. I think NPL Victoria, to me, is a league where the third man runner out of midfield into attack can be so effective for so many teams.
Well, this is the home state of Jackson Irvine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I knew Jackson Irvine was going to come up somehow when I said that.
When you're as good at it as he is, it's sort of his thing. That ball headed forward. You've got Inglesi trying to make a nuisance of himself. Played central. Mikola is there. Clever touch to take it round one. Couldn't beat the seconds. Strong challenge from Brzezinski. Attempt to transition quickly. Lazarevski goes down. The attention from Jankovic is deemed by referee Jack Morgan to have been within the rules. Morgan, of course, one of the best in the business, taking charge today. Assisted by Astro Sakalis, Matteo Brazzali. Daniel Woodyat is the fourth official. So, very talented refereeing crew sent out to today's game. Williams and Ranamisis just combining before the ball is sent forward to Lazarevski. Bounce of the second ball favours Victory. Georgakopoulos. Hoey. Abani was calling for it and received it. Now he's going to turn on the Jets. Abani was having to get the ball in but couldn't beat the first man. Stasi Georgakopoulos involved there, making back-to-back starts. Previously hadn't been involved since round 7, prior to coming in against Heidelberg United. A fun little journey as Georgakopoulos made his way around Spain, including his period in the Celta Vigo Academy before landing back in Australia.
So it's a more common path than you might think, that one. There's quite a few young Aussies who have spent time in either high-level Spanish youth academies or in the lower tiers. I think, if memory serves me correctly, Cooper Halfpenny, who's on the South Melbourne bench this evening, might be an ex-Leganés boy. I'm testing my memory there.
And Avaka CF as well.
There you go.
That's a clever feint, Mihalidis. Can he get there? Mihalidis turning back. Maybe one touch too many. And it's poked away by Painter Andrews. So Victory come agonisingly close, but now they need to get back. The switch of play. Max Mikkola. Well, he had to go back and get it, and in doing so, the attack somewhat petered out, and South will reload and try to build from the back. Do you think Mihalidis just needed to just shoot? I won't complete the phrase, but just shoot there, Lockie, on that occasion?
What you were thinking, or we all know what you were thinking, basically. Yeah, I think so. Perhaps guilty of just over-egging the pudding there, because, you know, he'd beaten Jack Painter Andrews once. You don't need to do it again. I understand players are, you know, generally have a tendency maybe to get it onto their preferred foot, but if you've got the beating of a defender with the, you know, agility and street smarts of Jack Painter Andrews, if you've gotten the better of them once, that's when you take your chance, because as good as the leave that allowed the half chance to open up, the recovery challenge after being beaten by Jack Painter Andrews was just as impressive, but without the turn, it never happens.
Mihalidis, he's got 2 goals on the campaign thus far. Matt hasn't scored since round 7 against the Melbourne Knights. That game, Victory looked like they were doing rather well in the top 6 race at that point. Somewhat downhill since. Mihalidis wearing the armband for Victory once more. Did so for the first time last week against Heidelberg. Now his teammates spring forward again, but that pass very wayward. Patrick Wall, the closest in the vicinity, was one of Victory's best against Heidelberg last week. Was Patrick Wall. Not quite having the same impact on this contest yet as we approach the half-an-hour mark. Jordan Hoey as well, who's come into the team for his brother, who's not in the squad today.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you were a Victory fan who weren't totally au fait with which number correlates to which player, you might not have thought there was a change on that particular wing.
So there's Jordan Hoey in, Jesse Hoey out. Jesse Hoey's been in and around the A-League setup, of course.
There's another Hoey presumably shaking it all about as well. Sorry.
No, that was very good. I'll pay that. Jordan being afforded a rare start tonight. Has been a super sub for most of the season. This is just his 4th start of the campaign. He's featured every week for Victory thus far. Brzezinski. Wall. Mihalidis getting it off to Georgakopoulos. Long range effort, but always rising from Parker Williams. They had a bit of feedback there for referee Jack Morgan. I'm not sure what about.
If he's claiming a touch, I certainly wasn't seeing it. I don't think there was a player within cooee of the shot, but maybe it had a lot more swerve than it looked from this angle.
Charged down by Mihalidis. Wall got to the byline, cut it back. Surely, Hoey. Jordan Hoey equalises for Melbourne Victory.
Super response from Victory, it has to be said. That there hasn't been too much going for them over the course of this game, but after a couple of flashes of quality, half chances, half openings, that's the best bit of play we've probably seen for the entire day. Fantastic work down the right-hand side from Patrick Wall, just to open up the angle and to take on his man, to create the cutback. And I'm not sure who was picking up the markers at the back post, but it doesn't matter which Hoey twin is on that wing. Either one of them would have tucked that away because it was put on a platter by Patrick Wall. Fantastic work from Victory in South Melbourne, having to fight back from level pegging to try and retake their lead.
Have to give credit as well to Mihalidis to charge it down and instigate the move to begin with, leading from the front, wearing the armband. So that's going to come back for a free kick, a heavy collision there. I believe it was Goreski that went down in a bit of pain. Subs on the bench for Melbourne Victory. You've got, Casper Fons-Boel is the backup goalkeeper, with Christian Siciliano and Daniel Graskowski with the A-League men's side. Linus Burke has returned to the squad via the bench, in line to make his senior NPL 1 debut after featuring for Victory in their VPL 1 promotion-winning campaign. James Lackey, having made his senior NPL 1 debut last week against Heidelberg, he's on the bench again. Finn Harbinson, who I know you're excited about, Lockie, having seen him at FC Bulleen Lions in the past. Malik Olakale, 16-year-old, in line to make his senior debut. If he gets on the park today, he scored 6 goals in 14 appearances with the 23s so far this season. Harbinson has also scored 6 goals with the 23s. He's done it in 13 appearances. And then Alex Aridis, who came off the bench last week, can also enter the fray if called upon. Finn Harbinson, Lockie, 18 years old, goal scorer. Exciting prospect.
Yeah. He's got a real knack for finding the back of the net, and not in a way that you see, many other young players do. He's got a no shortage of confidence, I'll say that, and you expect that to filter through if he does make his mark tonight.
There's Victory again, bursting down the left flank. South slipping and sliding around, but they did get the clearance, but it's a brief reprieve. Victory, tails certainly up. Trying to force the issue here. Parker Williams will come up with the ball. Georgakopoulos just able to keep it in. Goresi to Abani. Again, he's just getting to the byline and putting it into dangerous areas, but nobody in white there to meet it.
You did mention earlier, Joey, that Tabena Abani is the only player who's played every minute of the season.
He is the Iron Man of this squad.
And I have to say, I'm not surprised. I remember seeing him for the first time in VPL 1. I believe it was last year when he was still at Melbourne City. He has, of course, I think now come through all 3 of the academy clubs.
Completed the set.
Super impressive player, and he's proving a real handful for South Melbourne down that left flank. They do not have a lot of answer for the overload that he's providing over there.
We've had a few players that have represented all three Melbourne clubs at A-League men level. Should we complete in the set? Who should we name it after?
The Brendan Hamill?
The
do you
BJ
count
Hamill?
Brendan Hamill? Because technically it was Melbourne Hart.
Oh, surely that counts.
I think it has to count.
Yeah. And if you're going to name something after someone, might as well make it a bloke that scores highly on the good bloke index. Of course, BJ Hamill unfortunately missing last night's A-League Men Grand Final after rupturing his ACL, had surgery in the middle of the week. He's vowing to come back better. He says he's done the ACL in the other knee. Came back with that one bulletproof, and he's going to do the same for this one. As appeals for a penalty, and then the immediate palm from referee Jack Morgan. I saw your eyebrows go up, Lockie. Do you think maybe South had a case?
No, I think my eyebrow raise was more at the veracity of the appeal from the South Melbourne supporter over in the corner. I mean, they're going to appeal for anything, as is their right as a set of supporters. But no, I don't think there was too much in that one. Maybe the Victory defender guilty of being caught on the blind side a little bit, but I'm not sure there was much to answer for there.
Ball first is what we can certainly say.
Yeah.
Cleared up the touchline by Painter Andrews.
I have to say as well, Joey, you mentioned that grand final last night, obviously the biggest crowd for a sporting event ever at Amy Park, the Melbourne Derby grand final. Hasn't been many better times, unless you support South Melbourne or Melbourne Knights, to be a football fan in Victoria. The big games have just been flowing thick and fast of late, and continue in the NPL as well. Of course, Preston Heidelberg coming up next week as well. The big games just never stop in this state, it seems.
We'll get some. Oh, as Abani goes down, and it's pointed towards the spot. And minutes after South have denied an appeal at the other ends, Melbourne Victory have an opportunity to take the lead from 12 yards out. One-on-one with Javi Lopez. So you're immediately going for the YouTube stream to get a look at the replay, Lockie. We'll get your assessments on it.
Yeah, let's take another look at this. I have to say, with the amount of threat that Tabena Abani has provided on that left channel, it was only a matter of time, and the defenders left the trailing leg out there. Abani's taken up the opportunity afforded to him. I think the penalty is a fair call. I can understand South Melbourne fans' frustrations, given they've had a shout just turned down, but I think that one was cut and dry for me.
Well, here we go, Michailidis. The skipper stepping up and putting Melbourne Victory ahead. His defensive work created the first, and now he's been cool, calm and collected to grab the second.
A comfortable penalty from the young gun, and the turnaround complete in not much time at all for Melbourne Victory. And Tabena Abani doesn't have a name on the score sheet, but he should get a lot of credit for his work. I think we could put that one up to reward for effort for the fullback this evening. And
I think Sinis Kahastic has just been booked as well.
There you go. I mean, it's emblematic, I think, that loss of temper from Kahadzic and the free feedback to the referee, emblematic of what's transpired in this game, which is South Melbourne have lost control of the fixture. They started, other than one sort of surprise 4-on-4 counter-attack, they started fairly comfortably while not being swashbuckling. And over time, Victory have settled and started to actually knock the ball about quite well, really get those overloads in the wide areas working for them. And South Melbourne have not been able to defend against it, but also muster much of a response in the opposite direction. I mean, Jonathan Sultan has he had to make a save?
A few, but most of them were sent right at him.
I mean, since the goal, not too many at all.
Not since then, yeah. And you got to think, look, it's such a dangerous time now if you are South Melbourne, because if Victory can get a third just before the half, frustration will seep in. This is a must-win game if you're South Melbourne. You're a high-powered side with a lot of handy additions against an academy side. As Sultan there had to be good with his timing. He was. He's paid the price. Writhing around in pain just inside his penalty area. Didn't see too many appeals from the South players, Lockie, but the Clarendon corner once again is asking where's the spot kick.
Yeah, and again, as is their want, as is their right. But I have to say, even if he's come off second best, Jonathan Sultan has gotten the ball well and importantly for his team. You know, those are not the kind of situations, those are not the kind of things that you want to get wrong, and I think credit to the young Victory keeper. I think he got it spot on, even if he has borne the brunt of doing the right thing, basically. I think just to go back to your earlier point around South Melbourne not wanting to let this game actually get away from them, the other really important factor is, you know, yes, a 2-goal lead is a long way to work back for any team, but it's an especially long way to work back for a team who, again, have only scored 13 times this season. It's, yes, they scored 3 against Victory in the previous meeting, which makes the stat even crazier if you think three of those goals have come in a single game. South Melbourne right now on their current attacking form are not a team who want to be chasing a high volume of goals, because the stats tell us they can't do it.
And I guess if there's any player that, well, no player, as you point out, like he's in goal scoring form for South Melbourne, but if one was out there, it would be, I guess, Robert Harding, who was in that collision with Sultan. Scored in round 13 against Oakley in that loss. This ball is hurled in. Glassy nodding it on. Game ahead, tennis breaks out. Again, a South player goes down. The Clarendon corner appeal. Players waved on. Lazarevski fainted, and he's going to skip past Lampard. He's got Wall in the middle. Instead, he's going to look for Hoey. He'll play it back. Mihalidis. He can't get the shot off. Mells shields the ball, wins a free kick. Did you think Hoey was going to wind up and take the volley?
This is the thing, Joey. The commentator in me says that that's the right idea to do what Hoey has done there, even if it errs on the side of perhaps being too clever by half. But the punter in me, wanted to see him absolutely lace that one. Sadly, we'll never know what could have been.
Just have a go, son. Nicola. As the ball astutely taken away from him by Bozensky. Now Wall on Victory, breaking forward with speed once more. They have looked threatening on multiple occasions this evening in these sorts of scenarios. Not that time, though. Maybe something on the counter for South. Francu sends it forward. Bernarda will be forced very wide. That's very good defending there from Radamisis against the player of the calibre of Nahul Bernarda. To just hold it up, and, well, it's South Melbourne, so these throw-ins are basically corners, but put the ball out. Jack Painter-Andrews readjusts the sponsor boarding to give himself the best run-up possible. Hurled inward, nodded on. Sultan comes, got a punch, not convincing. Mikola just marshals it over the line for a throw in from the opposite side.
Are they listening to the stream on the lakeside, on the South Melbourne bench?
Well, I'm wondering what the sponsor boarding's doing over there. You'd think a team that uses the long throw in as a weapon like that, they wouldn't create the barriers to a run-up.
Is that maybe trying to train it out of the players to push them closer?
As it's hurled in again, nodded on again. Not cleared, Bernardo. Sat up for him, but he couldn't turn. This late flurry of attacks for South Melbourne. Bernardo's attempt to whip it in is closed down by Brzezowski, who's been good for Melbourne Victory. Lampard's ball, awkward bounce, Sultan claims. One of his teammates has taken a tumble.
Unorthodox distribution from Victory keeper as well.
Hoey wanted to get the ball to Mihalidis, was knocked away. Just trying to make out who that is who's remained prone down on the turf. Lockyer. Is it Parker Williams?
Yeah, I think by process of elimination, Joey, I think it is the Victory centre-back. Yeah, I've just seen him roll across to the right and out pops the number 20. Not a player Victory would want to lose.
Decently experienced 20-year-old. This is 11th start of the campaign. It's 4th straight.
It's funny, Joey. I remember a commentator who will remain nameless in the Esteban Quintas era, positing to their co-commentator on that day what Ange Postecoglou would have thought of the South Melbourne play under Esteban Quintas. And I can't help but sit here and wonder, as South Melbourne, after going 2-1 down, return to the long throw tendencies, wonder what, if he is watching, Esteban Quintas would think of what's unfolding here. Because
I hope you like my steak analogy.
Because if he is watching, you would have to imagine someone in his position would maybe be thinking to themselves, well, when I did it, it was some terrible, great problem, but when they do it, it's part of this new chapter. It's part of the great journey forward.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Which is not to say that if South Melbourne have a weapon, they shouldn't try to use it sometimes, but
I guess old habits do die hard. And especially, as we've talked about, Lucky, when Victory's youth do have some bigger bodies out there for an academy side, but they still are growing teenagers for the most part.
And I think it also speaks to the fact that despite their resistance to use it or avoidance to use it unless they need to, South Melbourne have been a little bit short of ideas in attack this afternoon.
As Georgakopoulos gets a boot in there, the ball will go out. South's throw in. It's a free kick, actually, in the end. Adjudged off Georgakopoulos, Stasi Georgakopoulos. And Jordan Lampard will jog across the field, so in swinging, left-footed delivery inbound. Jankovic once more. It was his header that put South into the lead, has come forward, as has Marshall. Glacy in there as well. It's nodded on towards the back post. Jankovic couldn't meet it.
Yeah, just not the desired contact in the end, but I don't know, somewhat alarmingly as we close towards the end of the first half here, Joey, it is looking as though if South Melbourne are going to find a route back into this game, it may not come from open play, which is not the scenario, not the situation that South players, South coaches, South fans would want to find themselves in any game, let alone in a game against a team who are sitting and are in the form that Melbourne Victory are in.
We'll see if this final attack produces something for South Melbourne. Well, I didn't even have a chance to finish my sentence before the ball went out. So the 3 minutes of added time that was signalled for to close out this opening half have almost expired. Barney with a throw-in on the left flank. Wall will do his diligence and chase this down. Lampard will get forward to Mikola. South have a throw-in, one taken quickly. Radamessis seeing that his teammate is right back there. Bozensky wasn't back in position, just puts it out into touch. Painter Andrews with the long throw in, big pack. Looks clear. South come up with the spills through George Mells. And that's dangerous, and it's going to fall, but Painter Andrews at the last unable to make proper contact, and that will be the final action of this opening stanza.
Here at Lakeside Stadium, the score is South Melbourne 1, Melbourne Victory Youth.
And after opening the scoring through Marko Jankovic, South Melbourne will head into the dressing rooms down 2-1 thanks to strikes from Jordan Hoey and the skipper Jack Mihalidis. And Lockie, Victory probably good value for their lead as well.
Yeah, they were second best in the opening start of the game, and the scoreboard ultimately reflected that. But as the fixture has settled, as Victory have settled,
about 15 minutes or so until the second half resumes. You'll have the countdown clock for company until then, but be sure to join us on the other side for more of this round 16 NPL Men's Victoria Clash.
Substitution for South Melbourne FC coming off, number 6, Lucas Inglese. Coming on, number 88, Charlie Lynch.
.45 minutes to play, a big task ahead for the home side, South Melbourne, as they look to wrestle their way back into this contest of the season. Currently trailing 2-1 to a Melbourne Victory side who sit below them and are staring down the barrel of a first win in 6 games, courtesy of a penalty in the second half from Jack Mihalidis to complete what was an impressive turnaround from these young Victory Chargers after being pegged back early doors by Marko Jankovic's header. Still anyone's game this, but Victory in charge. A big second 45 to come. Lockie Flanagan joined by Joey Lynch. And Joey, South Melbourne with the work to do in front of their home fans, because Victory have been good money for their 2-1 lead.
They absolutely have. They've been creating things in transition. They've been creating things in open play. They've been well organised and disciplined. South mostly relying on set pieces for a lot of their chance creation, and that really has sort of played out in the way that the game has gone. It hasn't been pretty from South Melbourne, and they have really struggled to impose themselves on a Melbourne Victory side that you would hope, given some of the attacking talent they have at their disposal, they'd be able to do. Of course, Nahul Banana back in there after some time away. Max Mikula back in the starting lineup. George Mel's in there as well, who did admittedly deliver the corner that was turned in by Marko Jankovic. But with 45 minutes to go in this one, something has to change for South Melbourne if they are to claim this one. We did see them make a change, as you mused about, at half-time, Lockie. Lucas Inglese coming off, Charlie Leach going on. So he didn't go into the back line, he just made his way to the bench this time.
That's way worse.
But Charlie Leach, he hasn't scored this season, Charlie. I mean, admittedly, not a lot of South players have scored this season.
Yeah, I do think, though, that South probably could use an extra number in midfield. We saw them get passed through. I mean, it's not like they didn't need an extra number in the box as well. They weren't exactly banging the door down in that respect. But I think in terms of Victory taking control of the game over time, I think a lot of that did happen because Victory were able to play through the South midfield line. And so Leach will add a little bit in both directions. I think he's always been a good two-way runner and hasn't scored this season, as you mentioned. Also hasn't played as much football as he would have liked. He's been one of those players who's been, I believe, fairly injury hit this season, but chance for him to change things this evening potentially. So he partners George Mells, both of them former Port Melbourne men.
You were right, Lockie. This is Leach, just his 10th appearance on the campaign. Back-to-back sub-appearances after back-to-back starts prior to that. So maybe beginning to string some football together, even if no doubt he would have preferred this to be his 4th straight start.
Curious to see, though, how South emerge out of this half-time interval, not least because they're down and they're South Melbourne. You want to see how they're going to go. But against Pascoe Vale in the Cup, where they also were trailing in that game, by all reports, in the dressing room, Sinisa Kahadzic, the new head coach, gave them a fair old rocket, and they did eventually, as they should have against a weakened Pascoe Vale side, find a way.
There's a big coming together there, and it's going to be a South Melbourne ball, just outside the area, though. So Bernardo brought down. Good-natured from the Argentine. He just gives a friendly word with his defender. I think it was Radamisis, indeed it was Radamisis who brought him down. Friendly word with him before the free kick can be sent in. So interesting position. It's basically a short corner. Free kick from this position. Sent in towards the near post. Sultan flew and punched it clear. Mihalidis, he'll get brought down and that'll be a free kick. Won by the Victory skipper. I mean, Sultan, Lockie, just his second start of the campaign. How would you assess him thus far?
Yeah, he's been, I think, good in the context of the pressure that's been applied on him this evening. I think South Melbourne have clearly identified a susceptibility, not of his specifically, but of this Victory team at large, from set-piece situations, and have sought to crowd Sultan at almost every available opportunity. And on most occasions, bar the game's opening goal, he has responded fairly well to that challenge.
Well, here comes Leach with the ball across Harding's delivery, and Sultan adjusted and punched it clear. Mel sends it back from whence it came, as does the Victory defence. Now ball hoofed clear, but Hoey unable to keep it in. Jankovic across to Marshall. Harding. It's Painter Andrews. Teasing delivery across the face of goal, but nobody there for it. Not the most convincing clearance, however. Max Mikkola. First attempted cross charge down. Second one will get to Harding. Falling as he headed it. And Victory scramble it clear.
Better from South.
Yes.
A lot more energy, particularly down the wings, which is where Victory caused them so many problems in the first half. Another set piece coming up.
Oh, and it's going to be flashed just wide. It was Jankovic again. Agonisingly close to an equaliser from the South skipper. Doesn't get much closer than that, does it, Locke?
It really doesn't. That whistled past the upright of the right-hand side of Jonathan Sultan's goal. That was really close. And while the returning players for South haven't quite had the impact that Siniska Hadzic would have hoped for, of the couple that have come back, I think George Mel certainly has, because his set-piece deliveries have been really valuable in getting South pretty much, other than that firm lash from Jack Painter Andrews right before the halftime interval, all of the good chances they've had today.
Well, play was stopped there because Lazarevsky had gone down holding his head. Robert Harding helped him to his feet before the trainer could arrive. I don't think referee Jack Morgan was a fan of that. Generally, you let any potential head injuries, you let the trainer decide when they're going to stand up. Looks like Lazarevsky's no worse for wear, though. Went through them. Finn Harmanson and Malik Olakale, two youngsters on the bench available to come on in the attack for Melbourne Victory. Well, there's Lazarevsky. He looked to charge that down. Surely no. For all of love and money, that looked like it was just going to take a glancing touch and nestle inside the far post. Somehow Sultan's goal remains unpenetrated, but for how long? South coming again. Harding at the back post. Heads it back across the face of goal. Still not cleared. A massive body's in there. Will come out to Jankovic. His shot's closed down. Leach couldn't get it to a teammate. Victory looking at transition. Big coming together, and Painter Andrews knocks it away from Hoey. Flurry of activity there.
Look, if the rumours of a rocket at halftime in the Cup game were true, I wouldn't surprise me if South are responding to a similar sort of shot up the backside from their head coach in this game, because their second half approach so far has had everything but the equalising goal thereafter.
Here they come once more. Mikkola on the turn. Fantastic move from Max Mikkola! What a goal, Max Mikkola!
Magic Max saving South. What a strike as well. He's just one of those players who has that X factor. They will take the game on. They will take the risks that other players often won't. It won't always work out, but when it does, it is absolutely beautiful to watch. And to be quite honest, the start to the second half they've had, it's no less than South.
Number 22, Max Mikola.
Sometimes you just have to doff your cap, and that was one of those occasions. Max Mikola back in the side for South Melbourne. Absent for the last 2 weeks. Scores his first goal since round 1 against Port Melbourne. And what a crucial goal it could be for his side. They are now level 2-2 in this relegation 6-pointer with Melbourne Victory. And here they come again. The ball in. Abani back to just knock it clear. Franku trying to keep up the pressure. All hands on deck for Victory right now. They are under siege. Mikola, the goal scorer. Sent one in low, was blocked away. Good use of the body by Jankovic on Lazarevski. Franku. Neat little spin move. Jankovic. Ball sent down the left flank. Mikola grabs it. Victory poke it clear, and now, well, there's Jahoui. Had acres of space to run into, but just too much on the pass sent in his direction. Lopez comes out to claim. Bernardo now for South Melbourne. Taken to the corner flag, but he just gets it out to Leach. Franku. Bernardo again, the Argentine, puts it on his left boot. Headed clear. South come again. Bernardo digged ball forward. How did that stay out? It didn't even go over the crossbar in the end. Ricocheted out towards the corner flag. Abani clears it away. Over the head of Lazarevski and Marshall. The latter recovers.
Any contact except that.
Except
we're talking about a different game. Wow. All of a sudden, Victory, who were, as we said, the better side in the first half, and I don't think it was that close, holding on. And I'm not surprised that the South Melbourne fans have refound their voice in a positive fashion, because this is the sort of fight, this is the sort of, dare I use the phrase, never say die attitude that this team and their fans have not just not seen in recent weeks, have struggled to see all season long, Joey.
Well, it's now 3 league games in a row, 4 games overall, in which South have scored multiple times. For a side that has struggled to find the net previously, that is good as gold. So no, just the 2 straight times in the league, 3 in the cup.
Just crunch the numbers on my calculator app, Joey, of all the goals that South Melbourne have scored in the league this season. 35% of them coming against Melbourne Victory.
Good Lord. The chance of a come on Hellas emerge from the Clarendon corner.
The fresh man in midfield, Joey, I think has really made a difference. Leach hasn't necessarily been a star of the show, but how he's allowed Mikola to push forward and have a little bit more of an influence, it's just made that entire front area a bit more mobile and dynamic, dare I say.
Sultan, well, looks for territory in the end. Lazarevsky was there and got across to ensure that Marshall would head it out. So Victory won't have to immediately get back, at least, as they have a throw-in for Obani, just inside South's half of the field. Only to then immediately cough it up. Stasi Georgakopoulos just falling over as the ball came to him. Marshall to Jankovic. Searching ball forward in the Max Mikula direction, but he ran out of real estate on that occasion.
Very rare that you see Max Mikula lacking in real estate on the sideline, given how much of the athletics track we've become used to seeing him utilise. I promise I'll stop mentioning the long throws at some point.
You need to get your money's worth, Lockie, before you go back to NPL New South Wales.
Emptying the clip.
Bernarda looking for the back heel for Leach. Williams got in the road, sent it away, and then he's going to get a free kick. The advantage that referee Jack Morgan was wondering if Hoey was able to turn, didn't eventuate, so it'll come back for Melbourne Victory. Well, Harding just stuck a boot out, Obani.
I don't want to hyperbolize, Joey, but the next 120 minutes of South Melbourne season could be defining, because obviously they're fighting to take the lead of this game. St Albans the week after. Two massive
relegation six-pointers in a row
in the space of a couple of weeks. If they come away with 6 points, they really pull away all of a sudden.
Alternatively, if they go on to lose both of those games,
it can't get worse than this. It can.
Obani pokes it away, only as far as Mel's. Williams sends it into the night sky here at Lakeside Stadium. The sun well and truly has set here by Albert Park Lake. But it's chilly, but an otherwise rather pleasant night. Not much wind, no hint of rain. Touch wood. As Leach sends that in. Williams with the header. Wall around the corner, looking for Lazarevsky. Wanted to turn it for the run of Mihalidis. Touch let him down. Hoey. He'll go down. Let's play on. The advantage has been played, lads. Come on. Georgakopoulos sends it across to the right. Mihalidis, sliding challenge was a good one. And here comes, well, I was about to say, here comes Lampard. There he went. And now it's going to be a free kick, and a bit of feeling again creeping into this one. Patrick Wall and Marko Jankovic exchanging words with each other. Initially thought a Victory staff member had come up to provide feedback, but no, they're just signalling that a change is likely being made for Melbourne Victory very soon. The paperwork being submitted to the fourth official. Obani flies to prevent that ball from getting through to Harding. Now, behind play, I think it is Wall who has gone down, which could signify that he is the man going to be summoned. The Clarendon corner, none too pleased that they won't be able to take this throw in quickly. Potentially a double change being prepared by Melbourne Victory. James Lackey, one of the players that is up and shedding the tracksuit. Meanwhile, play will resume for South Melbourne with the ball in the hands of Jack Painter-Andrews, who lofts it into the penalty area. Barney with a clearing header, but only so far. Bernarda! South Melbourne lead, 3-2.
How on earth did he manage it, Joey? I'm actually not sure.
I thought he wanted the bicycle kick and then it had passed, but no.
I don't know what it was. I haven't seen it before, but it was a quite incredible piece of striking play from Noel Bernarda to put South Melbourne back ahead again. He was like a contortionist in the penalty area, twisting and turning his body in every possible direction, trying every limb and leg combination that would allow him to direct the ball on goal, and eventually, somehow, some way, he did. Argentine ingenuity, we'll chalk it up to that.
Well, it's his third goal of the campaign, his first since he scored in this return fixture back in round 3 at the home of the Matildas. On that occasion, he opens the scoring. The first of 3 South Melbourne goals, and now he has scored their third to put them ahead 3-2. From 2-1 down, entering half-time, to in the ascendancy with just about 25 minutes to go. Meanwhile, Lackey has come onto the park for Melbourne Victory as well. He's gone to the left wing. Looks like Wall has exited and Hoey's gone to the right.
Victory coming off number 32, Aaron Bazneski, and coming on number 2, Linus Burke.
I'll assume you heard the ground announcer there. So Linus Burke, the other entrant to this fray, making his first appearance of the season, the 20-year-old.
Just watching it back on the replay, Joey, it's a super finish from Bernarda. He juggles it up to himself to try and get the bicycle kick in once and then twice. Feels the tug of the shirt from a foul, and as he's falling, manages to just pivot his body to the right so that as he's coming down, his leg connects with the ball and it squeaks through into the back of the net. It was just...
So we've had a
He's a madman. He was not... refused to give up on that one.
So he had a tricycle of bicycle kick attempts and then he got fouled and finished anyway. Remarkable goal as South go in search of a fourth. And we were pontificating just before the halftime break about what a 2-goal lead would do for Melbourne Victory at that stage. Well, now, with just over 20 minutes remaining and with the way this game has turned, the control that South Melbourne have, a fourth goal on the evening to make it a 2-goal lead could prove devastating for Melbourne Victory's hopes.
It certainly could, but dare I say it, Joey, even though the shoe was on the other foot at the home of the Matildas, we have seen it before. This scoreline being added to, not beyond the realms of possibility if history is any indicator.
Well, we have had one Hoey on the score sheet. Jesse tonight was Jordan back in round 3. Of course, Tommaso Minutoli with the brace in the 88th and 90th minutes in that contest. He's not in this Victory team today. So if they are to find some late goals, they'll have to come from another source, as Leach tried to send that one in, came out to Mells. Chested down, Mihalidis. That'll be a free kick and a yellow card against Lampard. Didn't even bother to look back, knew exactly what was coming.
Yeah, one of the world's easiest tickets, that one. You could see what was happening from a mile away. Sometimes they're the fouls you need to make, to be honest. Sometimes they're the cards you have to concede, but you can't complain when you cop those ones.
Ball is sent forward to Lazarevski, tries to turn the corner. Marshall is there to defend. Lazarevski can have another go. Oh, he drives inside. And then just too much on it. Lackey and the Barney can only watch it go to Javier Diaz-Lopez. So Lackey's got 4 goals for the under-23 so far on the campaign. He's not totally unawares of where the net is. He's going to have to get back to defend here as Mikola, again, surging. Goes to pick up the scraps. It's combined with Mel's. Painter Andrews has a bit of time. Winds up. Shot is closed down. Barney is scythed down. The advantage is going to be played. He's back to his feet. Lackey carrying the ball forward against Harding. Turning his man one way and then the other. The step over the shot. Can't find the target, can the youngster?
Well, if young James Lackey did open his Victory account, you would have heard the cheers from his family from, well, probably from Victory's new training facility in Beveridge.
Hasn't even been built yet, but it would have penetrated to the future.
It was that piercing a cheer. But that's what Victory have been lacking in this second half. And that's what they need to find more of if they are going to sort of break back and equalise again in this game. I'm really curious to see how South Melbourne approach the final 20 minutes here, because I feel like the natural tendency is to start to maybe conserve, try to defend a lead, but
they've got their foot on their throats.
Exactly.
Why would you lay off?
Exactly.
With Bernarda suddenly looking as lethal as he is, just get the ball to the Argentine.
I agree.
Or Max Mikola, alternatively. Here he is, looking for goal and setting it over the crossbar. Radamessis, long ball forward. Lampard, well, he's gone all the way back to keep it in as Lampard. No, he hasn't. He'll have a throw in right in front of the South and Victory substitutes warming up. Bernardo had Radamessis in his back. Meanwhile, behind play, South player is down, holding their head. And the trainer has been called for.
Well, you can drop another coin in the jar, Joey, because I'm going to mention long throws again. Max Mikola, I think he's been typecast over the last couple of seasons. People spend so much time about, his role in a very divisive, spoken about South Melbourne tactic over the season, that I think sometimes the fascination with that obfuscates what a talented player he can actually be as a footballer rather than a thrower. And I think in this second half particularly, he was quiet in the first 45, but this second half has shown just how good he can be on his day. He can be a bit of an enigmatic player at times. He's a player who can go from doing very little to a lot in a short space of time, but I think this decision in the second half to push him further forward, give him greater license in attack, has paid dividends for South, because he's looked sharp, he's had the zip, he's looked to take the game on at every available opportunity, and of course he was rewarded for his efforts with the goal of the day and the goal that set up this now 3-2 lead that South Melbourne sit on.
Well, he has just now got back to his feet and moved off, getting a drink now. Looks like he will be right to continue after it was Max Mikola who copped the head knock. Must admit, when you started talking about typecast, I thought you'd go to Queensland stereotypes.
Well, I'll drop one final coin in the jar, Joey, because...
Is it that Queensland could have used him at State of Origin?
No. I am going to say that another proponent of that famed tactic, I'm told, is in the house tonight. Harrison Sawyer.
He's here.
By all reports, is here.
When's the mid-season window?
I'm amazed we haven't, and I'm amazed we haven't spotted him, because he would probably tower over every other person in the Lakeside grandstand. So I'll get the binoculars out, and you can call the play for a bit.
Bernardo to Leach. If you know Harrison, send him a text and get him to give us a wave. Leach, squaring ball. Mells will keep play moving to the left. Lampard, his delivery, can't find a teammate. Mells again. Sends it out to Banana. Can he keep it in? He can. Painter Andrews loses Lackey. High ball towards the back peg. Nobody there. And the swing on it ensures that it will stay in. Lampard battling with Linus Burke. Cleaned up and winning a free kick.
I don't know if it's been intentional or coincidental, but the cross selection from South Melbourne in this second half, I think, has been really good. A lot of really quite awkward, not particularly powerful, driven crosses, but a lot of sort of loopy, winding balls that drop in a sort of half space between the penalty area and the goal line, putting in a really awkward area for a keeper who has to make a decision whether or not they're going to come a long way out of their goal line to attempt to get a paw to it, or if a defender is going to clear into touch or try and control it. They just forced Victory to ask and answer a lot of really awkward questions in their own penalty area.
Number 37, Mali, are you okay? Coming off for South Melbourne, number 11, Robert Harding. Coming on, number 39, Ethan O'Sullivan.
Changes made by both sides. Harding off for Ethan O'Sullivan. Melbourne Victory. Changes as well. Finn Harbinson has come on, as has Malik Olakale. And they were almost greeted by a 2-goal deficit.
Not quite the impact sub that you hope for. Marko Jankovic very close to doubling his money from the set piece. A pretty firm header against the crossbar. Victory goal leading a charmed life at the moment.
Whoa, and almost a perfect introduction for Ethan O'Sullivan. His marker slipped.
And another substitution for Melbourne Victory coming off, number 16,
absolutely hilarious. We were just talking about unfortunate impact substitutes only for Ethan O'Sullivan to score seconds after coming on.
Would have been something as Victory come forward. And then there's a collision behind play. Max Mikkola pleads his case, but he's straight into the book. And also, lucky, we have to give congratulations, Malik Olakale, the 16-year-old, making his senior NPL 1 debut for Melbourne Victory. Mostly played with the 16s and 18s last season. Joined Victory in 2023 after leaving Northcote. From what I've been able to gather of a few social media posts, a few TikToks, he is rapid.
Another one from the John Cain Talent Factory. Memorial Park, I should be specifying, not John Cain Arena. Although he might be good at tennis, I don't know.
Or basketball. Leach. Outside of the boot, couldn't find a teammate. O'Sullivan has been Johnny on the spot twice in quick succession. Could have had a brace inside 2 minutes almost. Instead, this South Melbourne lead will remain at 3-2.
Yeah, I know I've been...
Are you going to mention long throws again?
No, I'm done with that, I think. Unless they do one. I know I have harkened back to the 3-3 draw from earlier in this game.
It fits.
It does fit, but the longer time goes on, the less likely it's looking, because, Victory are, I think I said holding on before. I think they're hanging on now. South Melbourne are really threatening.
Yeah, that's another booking. I think it might have been George Mells now going into the book. So South has to be careful. There's about 10 minutes left, but they could find themselves reduced to 10. Several players now going into the book.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up working quite well for them last week when Jack Pope was sent off in the first half, as they defended really well, actually, against Knights with 10 men. Whether or not that was more to do with Knights...
I mean, I'm sure Jack Pope would disagree.
Yeah, well, true. But even if you can defend with 10, it's not a habit you want to get into.
Jack Pope's dismissal. Obviously, the biggest news involving Popes in recent weeks. There's Lampard. Sends it forward. Over the head of Linus Burke. And then appeals for a free kick there against Radamizis. For a foul on Rahul Bernarda. And they're heated. And the Victory centre-back is also going to go into the book. Well, after being unable to prevent him from scoring that third goal, he made no mistakes on that occasion.
Yeah, an easy booking. And I have to say, Joey, just to go back to the absent South Melbourne player today, I was surprised that Knights didn't stop play last week after the Pope's departure. Needed to leave time for South to elect a new one.
Very good. Smoke overhead. Blue or white smoke?
Concrete's more the thing at Tomset Stadium these days.
Jostling for position in the penalty area has drawn the attention of Jack Morgan. He's going to have a chat with Ethan O'Sullivan, who's been in amongst things since his introduction. High ball, Sultan came, he couldn't make contact. Bernarda picks up the scraps of the challenge that initially dispossessed him. So this new look Victory attack trying to get things going. They've got Lukale on the right. Harbinson operating as sort of that second striker, 10s type role. Lazarevsky remains up top. Lackey on the left. None of them in a position to chase that down.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit disjointed at the moment, isn't it, Joey? I don't know whether that's the volume of changes in quick succession, but or just the amount of deep defending they're having to do, because it's the South Melbourne are on their throats so much that even when they clear it, the counter-attacks aren't arriving. That's how many players are having to position themselves behind the ball at the moment.
There's players flying in every which direction. Lukale serving as the ball kid to try to get things moving quickly. Lampard had his own, however. Bernarda battling with Radamizis again. It'll just be a foul on that occasion. Well, Bernarda has gone down in a heap. No VAR though, so the initial decision will stand. Don't think Jack Morgan's allowed to just whip out his phone and check the YouTube stream.
Honestly, I'm all for it. Put an iPad on the halfway line with the stream. I mean, leave it on mute, ideally. But other than that.
So again, free kick in what is effectively the position of a short corner. South getting numbers forward. 83.5 minutes gone on the big scoreboard here at Lakeside. A fourth at this point would surely kill the game. Nicholas delivery. O'Sullivan was there. Victory desperately trying to scramble it clear. They'll have to batten down the hatches once more. Marshalled to the corner flag. It'll be a South ball.
The shape in the lead up to that set piece, I don't know if you saw it, Joey, was really odd. Victory ended up almost over-indexed on defenders in their own penalty area because South, despite choosing to take the attacking free kick, still had 4 defenders sitting on the halfway line behind the ball. So, yes, they're still going for a potential 4th goal that you reckon would kill this one, but just starting to manage potential risk and potential reward at this juncture.
Not going to get caught out in transition, albeit, as you've talked about, Lockie, those moments in transition we've seen for Victory's night largely absent in the second half. High delivery towards the back post. Sultan came, couldn't get it. Game over. South are going to win this one. And it's Jake Marshall in his return.
Well, I've praised Sultan for the way he's dealt with those set-piece threats to his penalty area on a lot of occasions. He hasn't had many that he's flapped at, but that one he did, and he's been duly punished. I mean, take nothing away from South Melbourne. The set pieces, they're still so good at them. They're still so effective, and ultimately it's moving the difference for them at the end of the day.
Number 5, Jake Marshall.
He is back.
Many happy South fans to see Marshall back on the score sheet. Yeah, that is, as you said, probably game over. Set and match South Melbourne. Unless.
Surely not.
They couldn't, could they?
They make me look like a right idiot. Olakale sends it to the top of the box. So many numbers back now for South Melbourne with that 2-goal lead. Bananas on an island. One that he's trying to make himself king of, throwing his body around. Gives away the free kick. Victory trying to reload. Victory conceding 4 goals now to South Melbourne. It's the most goals South Melbourne have scored all season now in a single game. That ratio of goals versus everybody else, goals against South Melbourne.
Hold on, let me open the calculator app.
Victory, sorry. Crossfield ball in the Abani direction, headed away. But you look at the live ladder now, and what this result does, it is huge for both sides. South Melbourne moving up to 10th out of the relegation zone, moving clear of not just Melbourne Victory, but also St Albans, 3 points clear of them. Just 2 points back of the Altona Magic. Melbourne Victory, meanwhile, fall into the relegation zone. Level on points with St Albans, but with an inferior goal difference. There's Obani. Can he get it onto the left peg? He's forced wide, and he'll have to settle for a corner. So not Obani, James Lackey. Got my left-sided flankers mixed up.
It's up to 43%, by the way.
What's the chant? Can we play you every week? Ball swung in towards the near post. Knocked clear. Like he couldn't get onto it, but Victory get possession once more. Crossfield pass. Headed clear by South. Linus Burke comes through. Can't get the ball. Left it behind. Max Mikola claims that's a great sliding challenge from Finn Harbinson.
I have to say, it wasn't his stock in trade when he was back at the Bulleen Lions in VPL, but credit to him for working hard. And Joey, just to add some more context to the relegation race, the last couple of seasons, the team who has finished 4th last, which is obviously, it wasn't then, but it is the position that will be the first safe one this season with 3 teams going down.
Substitution for South Melbourne
South Melbourne
FC.
make a substitution.
Coming off, number 10, George Mells. And coming on, number 23, Morgan Evans.
George Mells for Morgan Evans, but generally the team in that spot has had to get at least 24 points. And now all of a sudden, South Melbourne with 2 big wins, 9 points, 3 wins away from that mark. And when you see they play St Albans, Altona, all of a sudden they win those games. If they get an upset in another one of their remaining 10 fixtures, they're not far away from a mark that probably, if history is any indicator, would save them. Whereas for Victory now, they find themselves potentially needing 4 wins to get into that sort of territory, and that becomes much trickier.
especially as they are set to lose a host of players in the coming weeks to those mandated breaks that the players signed to the Senior A-League men's side need to take. Always the most difficult time to see the season for any academy side. We'll also await to see how that affects the fortunes of Melbourne City, who are currently going incredibly strongly.
The fourth official has indicated there will be a minimum of 5 minutes of added time.
5 minutes of added time here. Yes, City going gangbusters in the VPL1 this season under Alessandro Demanti as they look to earn promotion for the first time to the top flight. You had Western United in there as well, not quite having the same sort of campaign they did last year when they were right in the thick of things for promotion.
Substitution for South Melbourne FC coming off, number 22, Max Mikola, coming on, number 26, Campbell Dovison.
As Mikola makes way for Campbell Dovison. Of course, look, you've also got to consider this year in the VPL1, we also have that end-of-season final series as well. So top 2 promoted, and then sides below them play off for that other promotion slot.
It's no pro rel playoff. I still will want that every day for the rest of my life until it's returned to us. But it's a good alternative. Always love a bit of innovation. You know, I know that pretty much every team in the league and probably most fans hate it. I don't mind 3 teams down. Might be a controversial opinion, but I think generally in Australian football, across the board, we have not enough jeopardy. Now when we get arguably too much, it's a problem. I'd rather have too much than too little. That's just my 2 cents.
So, lucky Flanagan, with just minutes remaining until he buggers off to NPL New South Wales, drop in landmines. It's just one down in New South Wales, isn't it?
But NPL New South Wales being a good point. There is only one automatically relegated team, and the other is a pro-rel playoff. The lesson is bring back the pro-rel playoff.
Of course, we saw Melbourne Knights in a pro-rel playoff a few years back when we still had it against Dandenong City. They'd probably take that right now.
The problem is no sister sides to take on this time around. They're both above them in the table.
There's the high clearance. Booted clear by Victory. We await the conclusion of this game. Fixtures next week. We'd already mentioned South away to St Albans in a huge game. Melbourne Victory will host Avondale on Monday night, so doesn't get any easier for Boris Sarastan's side. Got Green Gully against Port Melbourne on Friday as well. Preston against Heidelberg. That'll be huge.
The first game they played, which had to be at home in the Matildas, was a fantastic game of football, as much as a spectacle. At BT Connor, you're going to get a decent serving of both, I dare say. That'll be a must-attend event if you're in Victoria, or at the very least a must-watch if you're lazy.
Dandenong City travelling to face Hume City. The Dandy Thunder hosting Altona, and Melbourne Knights hosting Oakley. So some big games. Any big fixtures we should keep an eye on in New South Wales for Lockie in the coming weeks?
Well, I know I'll be making my way to Mount Druitt this weekend, so head on over to Mount Druitt Town, watch the NPL New South Wales stream. That's where I'll be.
Of course, there's also the small matter of the Socceroos facing Japan midweek. So we hope all of these NPL games are played after Tony Popovic's side has punched their tickets to 2026.
Fingers crossed.
Sparing us all the stress of a playoff. When you talk about a pro-rel playoff, I'm not so much a fan of them when they're for World Cup qualification.
That is very, very fair indeed.
Victory coming forward. The game probably out of their reach at this point, but when you're in a relegation battle, I guess even -2 on the goal difference versus -1 looks a lot different. As the ball is swung in, Harbinson denied by Lopez.
He's a freak, Javi Lopez. Honestly, he's an absolute freak. He's barely touched the ball this half. He is so cold, it's not even funny. And yet he pops up with a fingertip save like that.
Victory pushing forward. Lackey's delivery, not the best. Bit of a rugby tackle there from Nahul Banana, but it won't matter as South Melbourne.
An enormous win for South Melbourne Hellas. 4-2 against the Melbourne Victory.
Yes, South
Sweet
Melbourne.
win for the club. We'll see you in 2 weeks as we face off against the Preston Lions at home. 5 p.m. kickoff.
It's a very loud PA system they've got here at Lakeside, but yes, full time here at Lakeside Stadium. South Melbourne picking up a crucial 4-2 win over Melbourne Victory, and it looked in doubt throughout the first half, Lockie Flanagan, but they finished strong and were deserved winners.
Yeah, they were, and it was the fight, it was the response that South Melbourne fans wanted to see, and I think it's a fitting song choice because this 3-week stretch they've had, the game they've got coming up, all the teams around them they need to beat to move towards safety, and today at Lakeside, another one bites the dust. On to St Albans next week.
Indeed, that was the final thirds of Lockie Flanagan. My name is Joe Lynch. It's been an absolute pleasure to have your company on the NPL Victoria YouTube page today. You can catch every game of the NPL Men's Victoria season, every game of the NPL Women's Victoria season. You can also catch Doherty Cup and Nike FC Cup matches on the Football Victoria YouTube page, live and free. Make sure you subscribed, be a friend, tell a friend, get them subscribed as well. But for now, one last time here at Lakeside Stadium, the final score in this round 16 clash, South Melbourne 4, Melbourne Victory 2. Thanks and success.